our APS classes, and this is your biology class for +1, and today we will start with our new chapter, that is chapter number 11, and the name of the chapter is Transport in Plants. How the transport in plants takes place. That means there are various processes or various steps that have been taken for the transportation in plants. So let us start with this chapter. The process of transport in plants via xylem and phloem. That means the main transportation of plants that takes place with the help of xylem and phloem is known as translocation. It includes transport of water, minerals as well as solutes. तो ये जो includes करते हैं, that means it includes the transport of water, minerals as well as solutes. So this is the process of transport in plants that they will take place with the help of xylem and phloem, and that process is known as translocation, and it includes the transport of water, minerals as well as solutes. Means of transport. What are the various means of transport that takes place in plants? There are basically 3 means of transport in plants. तो especially यहाँ पर 3 means of transport हैं जो कि plants में take place करते हैं. First is the diffusion. Diffusion is the most common means of transport in plants. सबसे most common important transportation in plants में जो एक method है, that is the diffusion. It is defined as the movement of molecules from the region of higher concentration to the region of the lower concentration without the need of the energy. तो diffusion जो है वो एक सबसे most common important mode of transportation of means है in plants में, and it especially involves the movement of molecules from the region of higher concentration to the region of the lower concentration without the use of any type of the energy. So diffusion is a passive process. जबकि diffusion के process में जो है किसी भी एनर्जी की जरूरत नहीं पड़ती है, and on the behalf of that reason we can say that diffusion is a passive process. इस वजह से जो diffusion का process है वो passive process है. Concentration gradient, temperature and pressure, especially 3 effects हमारे factors हैं, that is the concentration gradient, temperature as well as pressure affects the rate of diffusion. So there are 3 modes of effects of the concentration that affects the rate of diffusion. These are the concentration gradient, temperature and pressure. Next is the facilitated diffusion. Next mode of transport in plants after the diffusion is the facilitated diffusion. Facilitated diffusion is a transport process brought about by certain proteins known as permeases. तो जो एक facilitated diffusion है ये भी एक transport का process है जो कि brought about है by the certain protein, जिसको किसके द्वारा brought about किया जाता है, by the process of certain proteins, and these proteins are known as permeases. It is also passive process. Facilitated diffusion is also a passive process because in passive process there is no need of the energy. When all the protein available for the transport is saturated, जब सारे के सारे protein जो होंगे वो available होंगे for the transport is saturated, transport reaches maximum. उस टाइम जो transportation का process जो होगा, that is it reaches to the maximum point. It is a specific process that allows only certain molecules to pass. ये एक specific process है जो कि certain molecules को ही allow करता है pass करने के लिए, जो allow the certain molecules to pass. Porins and aquaporins are proteins that helps in the facilitated diffusion. That means there are 2 types of the proteins that helps in the process of facilitated diffusion. These are porins and aquaporins are the 2 types of the proteins that helps in the process of the facilitated diffusion. Porins are pores present in the cell organelles. तो जो porins हैं ये एक तरह से pores हैं जो कि कहाँ present होते हैं, cell organelles में present होते हैं, and especially जो cell organelles हैं such as mitochondria, plastids and even in some bacterial cells. तो ये जो porins जो हैं एक तरह से pores हैं जो कि present है certain type के cell organelles में such as mitochondria, plastids and certain type of the bacterial cells. Aquaporins are water channels. Aquaporin जो है these are the types of the water channels that transport the water molecules. जो aquaporins हैं ये एक तरह से water channels हैं और ये किस चीज में main role play करते हैं? They play an important role in the transport of the water molecules. So this is the passive transport. This is the diagrammatically representation of the passive transport. In this diagram, this shows the process of the diffusion, and in the second picture, this shows the process of the facilitated diffusion. In diffusion, there is the movement of the molecules from the region of higher concentration to the lower concentration, whereas in case of the facilitated diffusion, there is the transportation of the molecules from the region of higher concentration to the lower concentration. So this is the diagrammatically representation of the passive transport. Next is facilitated diffusion can occur by the following processes. तो facilitated diffusion जो है it can occur by the following methods or the following processes. First is the sympod, second is the antipod, and the third one is the unipod. So these are the three types of the processes by which the facilitated diffusion can occur. In sympod is a transport of more than one molecules in the same direction. तो sympod जो है ये एक तरह से एक transportation है जो ट्रांसपोर्ट की चीज का इन्वॉल्व करता है, मोर देन वन मॉलिक्यूल, एक से ज्यादा मॉलिक्यूल्स का जो ट्रांसपोर्ट इन्वॉल्व होता है सेम डायरेक्शन में, दैट इज नोन एज द सिम्पॉड. Whereas in antipod is the transport of molecules in opposite direction. Antipod में जो है ट्रांसपोर्ट तो होता है मॉलिक्यूल्स का बट इन द ऑपोजिट डायरेक्शन. Whereas in case of unipod is the transport of single molecules in any direction. Unipod के केस में भी ट्रांसपोर्ट होता है मॉलिक्यूल्स का बट इट occurs only in one direction. So this is the types of the facilitated diffusion, and there are three types of the facilitated diffusion, that is the sympod, unipod and antipod. This is the diagram of the unipoder, this is the sympoder and this is the antipoder. In unipoder there is the transport of the molecules that occurs only in one direction, whereas in case of the sympoder there is a direction of there is a transport of the molecules or more than one molecules in the same direction, whereas in antipoder there is a transport of more than one molecules but in the opposite direction. So this is the difference between the unipoder, sympoder as well as antipoder. So these are the three types of the facilitated diffusion. Next is the active transport in plants. How the process of active transport takes place in the plants. Active transport in plants requires expenditure of energy for the transport of molecules. Active transport के केस में जो है वो किस चीज को रिक्वायर करता है? That requires the expenditure of energy for the transport of molecules. अब expenditure of energy की उसको क्यों जरूरत पड़ती है? For the transportation of the molecules. Without expenditure of the energy, there is no transportation of the molecules. It can transport solutes from the region of lower concentration to the region of higher concentration and vice versa. It can transport the solutes from the region of lower concentration to the region of the higher concentration and vice versa. Membrane proteins are involved in active transport, especially membrane types of proteins that are involved in the process of the active transport. It is specific mode of transport of solutes. ये specific mode of transport है, especially in case of the solutes, transport of the solutes. So next is the diagrammatically representation of the active transport, how active transport takes place in this process. So this is the in active transport in plants, there is the transport of the solutes from the region of the lower concentration to the region of the higher concentration and vice versa. And membranes proteins are involved in the process of the active transport, especially to membrane proteins only. They are involved in the process of the active transport, and this is the specific mode of the transport of the solute. ये specific mode of transport of solutes है, and इस केस में जो है एक special type के expenditure of energy की जरूरत पड़ती है for the transport of the molecules or the transport of the solutes. So this is the representation of the active transport. Next is the plant-water relation. What do you mean by the term plant-water relations? Water is essential for the growth of plants. As all we know that water is the most important constituent of all the plants for their growth. Without water as well as minerals, no plant can be grow. कोई भी plant जो है वो without water as well as minerals के हेल्प के बिना जो वो ग्रो नहीं कर सकता है. बट एक्सेस और लेस वाटर इज हार्मफुल फॉर द प्लांट्स. पर जरूरत से ज्यादा वाटर या लेस अमाउंट ऑफ वाटर जो है दैट इज हार्मफुल फॉर द प्लांट्स. टेरेस्ट्रियल प्लांट्स lose some amount of water from the aerial parts of the plant in the form of water vapor is known as transpiration. जो स्पेशली टेरेस्ट्रियल प्लांट्स होते हैं दे लूज सम अमाउंट ऑफ वाटर. टेरेस्ट्रियल प्लांट जो होंगे दे कैन लूज सम अमाउंट ऑफ वाटर फ्रॉम द एरियल पार्ट्स टू द प्लांट्स इन द फॉर्म ऑफ वाटर vapors, and these water vapors is known as transpiration. That process is known as transpiration. Next is water potential. The measure of potential energy of water, जिसमें हम water energy के potential को measure करते हैं, is known as water potential. Solute potential and pressure potential determines the water potential of the cell. So there are two types of the potentials that determines the water potential of the cell. That are the solute potential and the pressure potential. With the help of these potentials, we can easily measure the or determines the water potential of the cell. Pure water has the highest water potential. जो pure water होगा, it has the highest water potential. Water always moves from higher water potential to the lower water potential. जो water है, it always moves from the region from higher water potential to the lower water potential. Water potential is denoted by a symbol of psi. जो water potential है, it is always represented by a special sign, and that sign is known as psi. The unit used to एक्सप्रेस वाटर पोटेंशियल, जो हम यूनिट यूज करते हैं फॉर एक्सप्रेसिंग द वाटर पोटेंशियल इज नोन एज पास्कल. तो जो यूनिट है वाटर पोटेंशियल को मेजर करने के दैट आर नोन एज पास्कल. दिस इज द वाटर पोटेंशियल. दिस विद द हेल्प ऑफ दिस डायग्राम वी कैन इजिली डिटरमाइन द वाटर पोटेंशियल. सो दिस इज द मेम्ब्रेन बिटवीन द lower concentration of the solute as well as the higher concentration of the solute, and this is the high water potential, and in high water potential there are number of water molecules that are present inside the water potential, and there is a net movement of water. यहाँ से जो है net movement of water जो है वो क्या कर रहा है, flow कर रहा है, and this is the dilute solution and this is the concentrated solution. In this potential, this is the dilute solution, and in this potential, water potential, there is the concentration solution. So this is the low concentration of the solute, and this is the high concentration of the solute, and this is the high water potential, and this is the low water potential. And in low water potential, inside them these are the solute molecules that are present inside the low water potential. So with the help of this diagram we can easily determine the water potential. So if some solute is added to pure water, अगर हम कुछ solute जो है वो pure water में add करते हैं, the water potential drops to be negative. तो जैसे हम कुछ solute होगा वो water potential में add करेंगे, तो उस solute के water potential में add करने से जो pure water में add करने से, क्योंकि जो solute हमने pure water में add किया, तो उस solute के pure water में add करने से जो water potential drops होंगे they are always negative. This is known as solute potential. उसको हम क्या कहेंगे, solute potential. It is represented by a symbol psi s. उस हम solute potential को किस साइन से रिप्रेजेंट करेंगे, दैट इज रिप्रेजेंटेड विद द हेल्प ऑफ साइन एस. इफ प्रेशर इज ग्रेटर देन द एटमॉस्फेरिक प्रेशर, अगर प्रेशर जो है वो एटमॉस्फेरिक प्रेशर से ग्रेटर है इन केस ऑफ द प्योर वाटर, देन वाटर पोटेंशियल ऑलवेज इंक्रीजेस. तो उस दौरान जो वाटर पोटेंशियल होगा दैट विल ऑलवेज इंक्रीजेस. सो जो हमने ऊपर फिगर देखा है उस फिगर से ये क्लियर हो जाता है कि दैट वाटर मूव्स फ्रॉम द रीजन ऑफ हायर वाटर पोटेंशियल टू द रीजन ऑफ लोअर वाटर पोटेंशियल. जो हमने ऊपर भी डायग्राम पढ़े उस डायग्राम से ये क्लियर हो जाता है कि जो वाटर है इट ऑलवेज मूव्स फ्रॉम द रीजन ऑफ हायर वाटर पोटेंशियल टू द रीजन ऑफ द लोअर वाटर पोटेंशियल, और फ्रॉम डाइल्यूट सॉल्यूशन टू कंसंट्रेटेड सॉल्यूशन. या तो वो मूव करेगा फ्रॉम region of higher water potential to the region of lower water potential, या फिर वो मूव करेगा from the dilute solution to the concentrated solution. When water enters the plant cell, जैसे ही water जो होगा वो plant cell में enter करेगा, pressure dwells inside the cell. तो उस वाटर में या उस प्लांट में जैसे ही वाटर एंटर करेगा तो उस वाटर के एंटर करने के साथ ही जो प्रेशर होगा वो डेवलप करेगा इनसाइड द सेल। तो वैसे ही जो प्रेशर होगा उस सेल के अंदर जो होगा वो जनरेट होना शुरू हो जाएगा अगेंस्ट द सेल वॉल, मेकिंग इट्स मोर टर्जिड, और उससे जो होगा वो टर्जिड हो जाएगी जो सेल वॉल होगी। दिस रेजेस द प्रेशर पोटेंशियल, और उससे जो वाटर प्रेशर होगा वो एकदम से रेज हो जाएगा। सो द रिलेशनशिप बिटवीन द वाटर पोटेंशियल, सॉल्यूट पोटेंशियल एंड प्रेशर पोटेंशियल आर एज फॉलो। अब इस तरह से हम ये देख सकते हैं कि जो रिलेशन एक डेवलप होता है किसके बीच में, वाटर पोटेंशियल के बीच में, सॉल्यूट पोटेंशियल के बीच में, या फिर प्रेशर पोटेंशियल के बीच में। दैट इज शोन विद द हेल्प ऑफ दिस डायग्राम। दिस इज द रिलेशन बिटवीन द डिफरेंट पोटेंशियल्स, दैट इज द वाटर पोटेंशियल, सॉल्यूट पोटेंशियल एंड pressure potential. So this is the side that is represented water potential. So water potential is equal to the pressure potential, that is represented by psi p, plus solute potential that is represented with psi s. So जो water potential है it always equal to the pressure potential plus solute potential. Next is osmosis. It is defined as the process of movement of water molecules across the semi-permeable membrane. जो osmosis का process है, it is also a most important process of movement of water molecules across the semi-permeable membrane. The movement of water depends on the concentration gradient and pressure gradient. अब जो movement है water की या water molecules की जो movement है वो depend करती है किसके ऊपर, both the concentration gradient as well as pressure gradient. This is the diagram that shows the process of the osmosis. So this is a tank, and in this tank there is the water molecules and there is the membrane that is differentially permeable membrane, and against this is the sucrose molecule. That means in this tank there are two types of the solutions, that is the water molecules and the sucrose solution, and in between the water molecule as well as sucrose molecule there is a differentially permeable membrane that is present between the two solutions, that are the water molecules and the sucrose molecules, that shows the process of the osmosis. The movement of water molecules occur till the equilibrium reaches between the two solutions. अब जो मूवमेंट ऑफ वाटर मॉलिक्यूल्स की वो अक्कर तो करेगी, पर वो कब करेगी, टिल द इक्विलिब्रियम, जब इक्विलिब्रियम का प्रोसेस जो होगा वो रीच कर जाएगा बिटवीन द टू सॉल्यूशंस। और दो सॉल्यूशन जो हमने लिए दैट इज द वाटर सॉल्यूशन एंड द सुक्रोज सॉल्यूशन, उनके बीच में जब इक्विलिब्रियम पॉइंट रीच कर जाएगा, एट दैट टाइम वी कैन से दैट द मूवमेंट ऑफ द वाटर मॉलिक्यूल्स अकर्स टिल द इक्विलिब्रियम इज रीच्ड बिटवीन द टू सॉल्यूशंस. The pressure applied to prevent the net movement of the solute molecules. अब pressure जो होगा that is applied to the net movement of the solute molecules across the membrane, and that is known as the osmotic pressure. Osmosis is essential for the movement of molecules. अब जो osmosis का process है it is very important for the movement of the molecules, and these movement of the molecules are ions, proteins and polysaccharides across the membrane. So this is the process of the osmosis. Next is plasmolysis. The behavior of the plant cell changes with respect to the external medium. इसमें जो behavior of plant cells का that changes with respect to the external medium. If the osmotic potential of the plant cell is same as that of the external medium, अगर osmotic potential जो है plant cell का अगर वो same है as that of the external medium, with the that of the external medium, the solution is considered as isotonic solution. तो उस सिचुएशन में जो है वो solution जो है वो क्या कहलाया जाएगा, that is known as the isotonic solution. If the osmotic potential is more outside the cell wall, अगर osmotic potential जो है वो ज्यादा है outside the cell with respect to inside the cell, at that time the solution is known as hypertonic solution. If solute potential is more inside the cell, अगर solute potential जो है वो ज्यादा है inside the cell as compared to outside the cell, the solution is said to be hypertonic solution. At that time, there are three types of the solutions, that are isotonic solutions, hypertonic solutions, and hypertonic solutions. So this is the diagram of the types of the osmotic solutions. This is the hypertonic solution, this is the isotonic solution, and this is the hypotonic solution. So in hypertonic solution, there is a movement of water molecules that is outside the cell membrane. And in case of the isotonic solutions, there is the entrance of the water molecule. जितना water molecule जो होगा वो cell wall में अंदर enter करेगा, उतना ही water molecule जो होगा वो बाहर release होगा. And in case of hypertonic solutions, equal amount का water जो होगा वो cell के अंदर जो होगा वो enter करेगा. Next is hypertonic solution results in the movement of water molecules outside the cell. तो इसमें जो hypertonic solution है वो किस चीज में result करता है? Results in the movement of water molecules outside the cell, and the cell is now known as flaccid. उस टाइम cell को क्या कहा जाएगा? Flaccid. When a cell is kept in hypertonic solution, जब हम cell को hypertonic cells में रखेंगे, the water moves inside the cell. तो water जो होगा वो cell के अंदर जो होगा वो move करेगा. And at that time the cell is said to be turgid. उस टाइम cell को क्या कहा जाएगा? Turgid. The process of shrinkage of protoplasm away from the cell wall. जब process ऐसा process जिसमें protoplasm का shrinkage होगा और shrinkage of the protoplasm away from the cell wall, when a plant cell is kept in hypertonic solution, is known as plasmolysis. तो उस process को क्या कहा जाएगा? Plasmolysis. As a result of being placed in hypertonic solution, जब हम उसको place करेंगे hypertonic solution में, water moves outside of the cell. तो water जो होगा वो cell से बाहर जाएगा. This is known as plasmolysis. So this is the diagram of the plasmolysis. This is the normal plant cell and this is the plasmolyzed plant cell. In normal plant cell, outside the cell, this is the cell wall, and outside the membrane, that is known as the cell wall, and inner side is the protoplasm, and this is the nucleus that is present both in the normal plant cell as well as plasmolyzed plant cell. So this is the process of the plasmolysis. So this is our part number 1, and our next topics are to be covered in the next lecture.